Hey besties, welcome back to my channel. My name is Corinne, and I read 12 books in January, so let's talk about them. The first book I read in January was Fix Her Up by Tessa Bailey. I was in the mood for a lighthearted rom-com, which is why I picked it up. I knew nothing about it going into it. What I wish I would have known is that the main character is a clown, and that the words baby girl is said over 50 times throughout the span of these 300 pages. I did not really enjoy it. I was struggling to get through it. I should have DNF'd it. Unfortunately, it was the very first book I read of 2024. It was a great start to the year. I rated it 1 star. Mostly because I probably should have DNF'd it. So, that was the first book of 2024. Next, I started a series that I did not think would become one of my favorite series ever, and that is Crescent City. I read Crescent City 1 within 2 days. This brick of a book. And I ate every second of it up. Basically, if you haven't heard of this, it is a modern fantasy by Sarah J. Maas. Crescent City 1, or House of Earth and Blood, is about Bryce Quinlan, who is half fae, half human. Basically, there's a brutal murder, and she is really shaken up about it. This angel Hunt gets assigned to watch over Bryce, and basically it's just their story of trying to solve the murder, figure out what happened. It is interesting though. They've got cell phones and modern technology, but it's a fantasy and they're fairies and have magic. So do with that what you will. I loved it. I rated it 5 stars. There had to have been crack in this book. It was absolutely perfect. The third book I read in January is The Housemaid's Secret by Freida McFadden. I read The Housemaid by her back in June of 2023 and really liked it. I have heard that her books are pretty similar, so I wanted to space them out, which I'm so glad I did. I loved it. It gave me the same feelings as the first one, even though I didn't really remember what was going on. I loved it. I think I rated this 4 stars just because it is so similar to the first one. It was great. My second 5-star book of the year. This is Ruthless Vows. This is the sequel and conclusion, I believe, to Divine Rivals, or the Letters of Enchantment series. Divine Rivals is about Iris and Roman, who have typewriters who are able to magically communicate with one another. In the first one, Iris doesn't know that it's Roman. She thinks she's writing her brother, but Roman knows that it's Iris. Chef's kiss. Perfect young adult fantasy, almost like magical realism. It's a very realistic world aside from the fact that there's gods that are at war and they have magical typewriters. But other than that, the world is very realistic. Ruthless Vows takes place directly after Divine Rivals ends, and both books are so wholesome. Please read them if you have not already. Little White Lies. I rated this 3 stars. I don't think that's the book's fault though, I think it was my fault. I went from reading Crescent City to Ruthless Vows, which were both 5 stars for me. I just was not quite in the mood for this when I did read it. This book is about Sawyer, who is just a mechanic. Her and her mom are kind of struggling. Poor girl gets rich. Her grandmother comes to her with some sort of contract, says, hey, if you participate in this debutante stuff, I'll pay for your college. Who doesn't like free college, right? It was good. It was a little bit too long. It's like 400 pages. Again, I think I was not in the right mood when I picked this up, but I think I'm gonna read the sequel this month and I should be in a better mood for it. Hopefully that can be a 4 star. Then we have A Flicker in the Dark, and here is where I went on vacation, and when I go on vacation, I read like crazy. So I read A Flicker in the Dark in one sitting during our 10-hour car ride to Colorado. I think I rated this 4 stars simply because I did not guess the ending. I thought I guessed it. It was gearing up to be like a 3.5 for me, and then the end hit and I was like, oh, okay. That kind of got me. The FMC, Chloe Davis, when she was 12, 6 teenage girls went missing in her small Louisiana town. Her dad pled guilty and has been in prison for these missing girls, presumed dead. Now she's a psychologist in Louisiana, and there's disappearances that are suspiciously familiar to what was happening when she was 12. She wants to try and figure out what's going on. I was on the edge of my seat while reading it, but I rated it 4 stars. The ending did get me. The next book I read, so we're still in Colorado at this point. The next like 4 books I'm going to talk about are all books that I read in Colorado. The House in the Cerulean Sea. I did not know much about this when I went into it. All I know is my sister-in-law loves TJ Klune, the author of this. It was absolutely perfect. I was underlining so much. I was crying at just the happiest moments. It is so wholesome. It just made my heart melt the whole time I was reading it. Basically, this book is about Linus, who works for the department in charge of magical youth, or in the book, it's referred to as Daikami. Extremely upper management, corporate, if you will, calls him in and they're like, hey, we have an assignment for you. He goes on this assignment to this island where there's 6 dangerous magical children. Throughout the book, you get to know the children. You get to know who they are as actual children and not by their assumptions or like what they're known as. It's fantastic. Lots of messages, lots of great quotes. Again, it was a 5-star for me. This is Suddenly a Murder, and I rated it 2 stars. Not really too much happened. If you've seen the movie Knives Out, that's the reason I bought this book. When I read the summary, it gave me the same vibes. I loved that movie, and so I was expecting to feel that way with this book, and maybe that's why it kind of disappointed me. The premise of Knives Out and this are very similar. I genuinely just did not like the execution of this. So, it was a 2-star. Cool. We can move on. I would put this in my top 3 for the month. Loved everything about it. Vito has joined us. I loved everything about it. This is about Evelyn Hugo. She was a movie star from the 50s to 80s. Evelyn Hugo calls this woman, Monique Grant, in to interview her, and she's telling the story of her life. I love Taylor Jenkins Reid. I love the women's fiction she writes about. Like, I would recommend this book to every woman ever, because women. This next book I would probably also put in my top 2 for the month, and that is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. To say that this book blew me away would be a huge understatement. I read this book on the way home from Colorado, so I had a 10-hour car ride to sit and read this book. I'd been listening to the audiobook throughout our trip, and so I got like 100, 200 pages in. I finished the other like 200-ish pages in the car, and immediate 5 stars. I don't think I said either, but Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo was a 5-star. This book is about Addie LaRue, who in the 1700s makes a deal with the devil. Not supposed to make deals with the night gods, and she does. And in exchange, he takes her ability to be remembered and to age. So she's been living for like 300 years, so it goes back and forth between her past life, and then there's a present timeline in 2014. And so it goes back and forth. It gives you the backstory on things, but it also shows her life now, as she's now 300 years old. It is a beautiful story. I felt every single emotion while reading this. Next, I read King of Wrath by Anna Huang. This is the spin-off series called King of Sins after the Twisted series. So I read the Twisted series last year, and I loved it. So I was expecting to love this as well. I don't know what it was about this. I think I rated it about a 3 stars. The romance was good, but I just didn't care for like the writing. I didn't care for the trope. It's like arranged marriage. It's about Dante and Vivian. I liked Vivian a lot. I did not care for Dante so much. I think I rated it 3 stars because I enjoyed parts of it, and there were parts of it that I didn't enjoy, and also I will probably forget about it. The last book I read of January is none other than Crescent City, House of Sky and Breath. I, again, have no words. This was, of course, a 5-star. I love this world, the characters. I love the magic system. It really is so unique. Also, can we take a minute for the Barnes & Noble exclusive editions? They're stunning. I will say I liked the first one overall more, but I liked the ending of this one better. If you know, you know. It was a 5-star. Out of the 12 books I read, I had 6 5-star reads. That is all the books I read in January, and I think that might be the best reading month I've ever had based on how many 5-star reads I had. And then I had 3 4-stars. That means I only had 3 books out of 12 that were 3 stars or lower. I call that a win. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, guys. I will see you in my next video. Bye!